With central bankers writing the rules, making the decisions, and affecting businesses all over the world, the financial realm is largely worrying about the result. Will there be jobs tomorrow? Can the economy sustain an interest rate increase? Will the Federal Reserve ever commence QE4? What kind of public works projects does the federal government have in mind? I can make a prediction about the future of the general public after the bankers make their decisions. They win, you lose. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. We're going to get into this today, obviously, with the Federal Reserve. Their very important meeting coming up that needs to be the focus for now. But here is Bank of America saying the Fed can't raise rates or face economic collapse. Let's begin with China. Obviously hot in the news. This is out of Bloomberg, talking about the Shanghai Composite Index dropping 3.5%, led by the commodity producers and technology companies. And it goes on to discuss the more detail, but I generally don't like to get into the detail of the articles. That's up to you. And what we have here is data this month showed 5 interest rate cuts since November, and plans to boost the state spending have yet to revive an economy weighed down by overcapacity and producer line deflation. There are many reasons why this is occurring. Don't just think it's what this article is saying. But the fact remains is that the stock market is in general declining. This is while they are printing all kinds of money, lending. Their whole lending practices have been loosening. They didn't have to worry about all of the reserve requirements. They're doing a lot and still not having an effect. Let's move on to this. And I should say, to interject here for a moment, where we have the problem, reaction, and solution, also known as the Hegelian dialectic. Many of you, the Money GPS subscribers, know about that. This happens to be the Egyptian billionaire saying that he identified 2 Greek islands that could be used to host Syrian refugees, and suggested setting up a joint stock company to deal with the expected donations. I don't know about this particular situation, but whenever you have a billionaire who seems to be so generous, so loving and kind and caring, I start to get a little concerned. Essentially, he wants to buy up this island, where it says here the Egyptian billionaire had announced that he was interested in buying an island where refugees could be housed until they could return to their own country. So he's saying he wants to buy up the island for his own good conscience, have some people come there, they can relax, they can have all of their luxuries, and then when everything settles down, they'll head back. I don't believe that's the case. I really feel that the countries are in such bad shape right now because of what's being done with the West funding ISIS and Al-Qaeda. But if I say too much about that, then certain things happen to the channel. I'm not going to get into the details for the moment. I wanted to continue on with the topic. As we look at this out of the Telegraph, decision time approaches for the U.S. Federal Reserve. It's been a long time coming. Yet, for the months of anticipation and the acres of columns inches, the decision has already attracted, basically saying it's going to be not much of a big deal. It's going to be the first U.S. rate hike in nearly 10 years should this occur. For much of the time, rates have been close to zero, and they're saying here out of the Telegraph that if they raise it to 0.25, which is something I see as a most likely scenario if they do raise 0.25%, to most people wouldn't seem here or there, yet it would be a start to the baby steps to the long march back to interest rate normalization. Many people would say you can't raise rates because the economy would crash. I guess this is a good time to mention, at least I believe, that the crash is what they want. You always want to crash the system. You want to pull as many suckers in as you possibly can, then crash it. When it hits the bottom, all of the billionaires throw in their money and everything begins to rise again. consistently profiting. They shake out all the loose ends, and that's you and I. And then the rich guys get in, buying up everything for pennies on the dollar. They do this every single crash like clockwork. It's genius the way they work it out, and you and I are basically stuck with the short end of the stick. Another article out of Bloomberg as we talk about Bank of America. The House view is that the Fed will increase interest rates, raising its target range by about 25 basis points. But David Wu, the bank's head of global rates and currency research, thinks a September rate hike will be a mistake. If you look at the U.S. economic fundamentals, U.S. data, yes, the Fed should be hiking rates. Right there, I want to stop and just say, I don't know what data he's looking at. It's definitely different than what I'm looking at. Janet Yellen runs the world's central bank, and at least they admit that, because in fact it is. We know that. They printed $16 trillion handed out to institutions all over the world. Wouldn't say who they gave it to, but of course during the limited audit we were able to find out that they gave it out to Scotland and South Korea and everything in between. $16 trillion never been accounted for in their actual official books. Still soft growth across advanced economies, select emerging markets that are still under stress from the collapse in the commodity prices and the deterioration in China's growth outlook. All of the different reasons why we should not have a rate hike here because of what this could do. There's lots more information here in the article. I need to move on, but essentially the economy can't handle a rate rise. And I totally agree with that. But perhaps it's time that they crash the economy. I'm not saying it's going to happen now. I'm not saying that at all. But eventually, they want a crash to happen so that they can usher in this new monetary system. I've talked about this many times before. I believe it's going to happen at some point. HP expects to cut 25 to 30,000 jobs as part of its restructuring and cost-saving effort as it enters into this new business. Basically, they want to split it in two. Now, what I see about this is nothing short of unusual anymore. You always have companies looking for additional corporate profits. What they do is they fire a whole bunch of people and the stock will go up. It's a really, sad thing to look at because a lot of people are losing their jobs as a result. This is just one example. In my book, talked about a similar thing. During the 2011 era, where you had this uncertainty in Europe particularly, brought on a wave of firings that washed away more than 200,000 jobs in the global financial services industry. Now think about that, 200,000 jobs. Of course, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that many people, but that's a lot of jobs to be lost in one sector alone. What happens when oil goes down significantly? Well, of course, a lot of people, thousands upon thousands, begin to lose their jobs. All the way through the line, of course, there is that ripple effect which isn't accounted for, and this needs to be looked at. You have people losing jobs ultimately. You have the problem, reaction, solution that we're facing. The problem is that the economy is going down. They can react to this by engaging in QE. They can do public works projects. Ultimately, the solution at the other end of this, when it gets really, really bad, is to obviously usher in the new monetary system. Let's look at this. Increased marijuana heroin use to contribute to the highest reported illicit drug use in more than a decade. Now, I'm not going to get into details of this. What I see is a degeneration of the society regardless of this fact here. I see prescription drugs being used more now than ever. What I see is something getting worse and worse and worse. Many people are doing things that they shouldn't, let's just say, and this type of behavior always exists when you have this bread and circus type of environment, where they call it the panem et circenses, which was Juvenal's line for the bread and circus, talking about how they've provided everything for us. They provide the entertainment, they provide that welfare system, and the people are engaging in it as much as possible, getting and taking, whether they have to or whether they are sort of sucking on the system, it goes to show you that things are getting worse. There's more food stamps, there is more poverty now, child poverty, and everything, basically all the bad things are increasing at this time, and that is quite unfortunate. And then there's this. I had to throw it in at the end here. U.S. training helped mold top Islamic State military commander. This individual was a natural military star when he joined Georgia's military, fought the Russians during the 2008 war, but left Georgia for Turkey in 2012. In Syria, he's changed his name. He's the commander of several major victories. So this individual, yet again, receiving funding from the U.S., receiving training, and now he's able to command this army. So what they're doing here is using this. They are fighting against their own people, essentially. The U.S. is sending all sorts of weapons, the training and everything, helping out ISIS to be built up to a real army. It isn't what it was with the Taliban or even with Al-Qaeda. This is the new, stronger version of that, and it's actually becoming a real force. Yes, it is manipulated and controlled to a certain level, but it's obviously something you can't control forever. This is very concerning in a different way. Now, I just wanted to mention quickly, if I ever mention ISIS, Islamic State, Syria, Assad, any of these type of things, and I put it in the title, I put it in the description, I put it in the comments, something along these lines, I'll actually have Google strip away the AdSense. It's not like I'm getting blocked or banned or something like this, but they literally take away the advertisements. This is for different reasons. Now, this concerns me a lot because, not because of, I don't care about the AdSense, the Google money. What I'm concerned about is that they can eventually shut me down as a result of this. So it's a little concerning. I don't like to do too many videos about it, but if I could sneak it in on another video, that's how I can get that information to you without having to worry about sort of the let's call it the censorship. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. Last but not least, if you found this video informative, I know you'll find my book, The Money GPS, even more informative. You can actually flip through the book for yourself. If you go over to Amazon, they have a look inside feature, which allows you to flip through the book and see if you like it. Take care.